You want some great coffee to bring to your coffee hour for after liturgy? Or how about just to drink every morning on your own? When I do drink coffee, this is the only brand I drink, Fox & Sons Coffee. They believe over there, my man Stephen Fox believes that coffee should come with a great story. His began on Saturday mornings with his dad, early breakfasts, good conversation, and a shared cup of coffee that sparked a lifelong passion. Those memories shaped who he is and inspired him to start this company, Fox & Sons Coffee, not just for the love of the coffee itself, but to honor his father and pass something meaningful to his two sons. Now, he's inviting you and me to be part of that legacy. If you guys need gifts, if you just love coffee, and like I said, maybe you just want to bring some to the parish for coffee hour, now is the perfect time to try these handcrafted, family-inspired blends. We've got a code for you, BUCK15 at checkout, BUCK 15 at checkout, get you 15% off all orders over $35, so you can save big and sip better coffee than you may be used to. This coffee, again, is made with love, roasted with purpose, shared with family. Fox & Sons Coffee, brewed from the heart.
This is a Dissident Media production. DissidentMedia.net.
You're tuned into the Counterflow Podcast, home of dissident voices,
unapproved opinions.
But you gotta get ready.
You ready?
Now here's your host
and humble narrator,
Buck Johnson. Let's go.
What's up, you guys? Welcome back once again to the Counterflow Podcast. As always, I am your host and humble narrator, Buck Johnson, coming to you out of Lockhart, Texas. Mano Elia is back, our friend from the Study of Stuff podcast, from SOS Radio, from things that you'll learn more about as we get into this discussion. Mano has a very extensive history of looking into conspiratorial and geopolitical and spiritual things. We are going to get into some of the psyops, and no, not everything is a psyop, that have happened over the last multiple decades. And we're not just going to get bogged down into details and bitch about problems on here. We're going to talk solutions. And this is going to be a fruitful conversation, I hope, for you guys. And again, we're not just bouncing off theories back and forth and getting black-pilled and doom-pilled and pessimistic. There's a lot of white pills to be had here. For those listening that don't love internet-coded terms, that means optimism. And so, without further ado, my friend, your friend, Mano Elia, welcome back to the show, my friend. How are you?
I'm fantastic, Buck. Thanks for having me on. Thanks for having the bravery to have me on, because I ramble a lot.
Well, that's a good challenge for me. I get to, the challenge for the interviewer is to either, geez, this guy won't speak at all and try to pull it out of them, or to keep them sort of with inside. It's like the bowling lanes when they have the bumpers. That's me. I'm the bumpers. I can't let Mano's bowling balls go over to the other lane. So we'll work on this. You have a lot to say. I love that. And you're my friend. I love that. And I love your show. And I love some of the stuff you're doing. Before we get into this content today, talk about the show. And you can get into, if you'd like, the things that are coming up on the horizon.
Oh, like my show, you mean?
Yeah.
Oh, okay. Yeah.
Well, I don't want you to talk about mine.
Okay. Well, I mean, we do often on my show. It's who knows? A lot of things are happening. We have a podcast, interview a lot of great guests like yourself, a lot of priests. The last year, 2 years, mostly been, I think everyone's been Orthodox. And we do a radio show that now has moved to Friday nights, SOS Radio, old school style radio show. And we've recently launched a soft launch, and we're going with a hard launch soon, a record label called Spoon Records. It is the very first, as far as I know, Orthodox record label. We already have an amazing release that we're trying to fund. So we're trying to get some funding for it to drop some vinyl. It'll be Father Turbo and Justin Marlar, 2 unreleased tracks, both from Father Turbo and Justin Marlar. We've got a lot going on. We just started a new school. It's a new platform similar to Patreon. Father Turbo, credit to Father Turbo. We're taking Father Turbo's lead. It's a great platform. So
when you say a new school, explain, because a lot of people still don't know what that is. Talk about that really quick.
Sure, it's a different platform than Patreon. It's a lot more engaging, I think. It's a lot easier for people, for the community to kind of connect with each other and us. So Father Turbo started his Synaxis of Sophia, and I loved the platform. I loved Father Turbo's Synaxis of Sophia, of course. And I liked how it was laid out. So I thought it would be a good way for us to kind of practice what we preach, because we preach a lot about building community, which is something we're going to be talking about a lot tonight.
Yeah, indeed. So to get into some of this, we'll start off. We are obviously, there's a lot of topics we're going to go over. We're going to do sort of a bird's eye view of a lot of these things and not get into the weeds. There's going to be topics where I've done multiple episodes on just the topic. And so we're going topic, because you and I are about the same age, and there's been psyop after psyop after psyop, and I don't fall into one of the groups that said everything's a psyop.
Yeah.
But there's been some massive ones, and a big one led you and I, you back to the church, me to the church. And so let's take sort of a big picture look at some of the things we're talking about, and I'll let you start, and then I'm going to start providing questions and guardrails.
Okay, and I'll do my best to like pause in between. So please feel free to interrupt me at any point, so I don't go off the rails, as you said. The very first thing I wanted to start off with was I was kind of thinking where to put this in the whole timeline. So I think I'm going to start with it. I think we're in a war of discernment above all. I don't think it's a war of disinformation or any of those other things that we've heard in the past. I think we've gone past a lot of those periods, and we're in a war of discernment. What I mean by that is, in the last couple of years, I think it's pretty clear and pretty evident to the average person, no matter where they fall, atheist or Christian or Orthodox Christian or whatever, that it's clear that there's a war against good and evil. That's what's really going on here.
A war between good and evil.
Yes, sorry. Yes. A war between good and evil, right? And that's clearly what we see in front of us. And what I mean by a war of discernment is all of the information is in front of us. No matter what subject you pick, you have access to all kinds of information right now. And it's almost like none of the lies are hidden anymore. It's just that they're all on the table, and you don't know what's true, what isn't true, who to listen to or who not to listen to. So it really comes down to discerning, whether that's physical, mental, or spiritual. On all those 3 levels, you have to kind of discern where the truth is. So I wanted to start off by kind of like a little bit of a shout out for some. I'm going to miss some names here, but a lot of the things I'm going to cover now have been discussed by people for like the last 20, 30, 40 years. But I'm going to focus on the last maybe 10, 15 years. Names like James Corbett. James Corbett has been calling all this stuff before it was happening. And if you had followed his work, you would see this all line up. Whitney Webb, Catherine Austin Fitz, Derek Bros, and of course, Cyprian from The Royal Path. The Royal Path itself predicted a lot of stuff in the last little while. Jay Dyer. So those are like the shouts to the Orthodox crew right there. And why I wanted to start off with that is, they're ones that were kind of predicting things before they occurred. So therefore, the discernment I'm referring to is, I was one of those people that knew that the 2020 events were going to happen before 2020, not because I was a prophet by any means, but because I was listening to a lot of the work from these people and other people that I've obviously left off the list. And we don't have to agree with all of their points of views, but we can definitely see that they were calling things. They were seeing things for what they were and what was going to happen. So therefore, I think it's logical to kind of turn to people that were calling things to see what they're saying today. What are they saying now? So does that kind of make sense? And how
it does.
Yeah.
Yes. Yeah. And I think my personality is inherently skeptical.
Mm-hmm.
And I try to be skeptical even when there's people that I've learned things from and go, okay, where's this coming from?
Mm-hmm.
Where were they before? There's so much garbage on as far as media goes. And I think we should sort of emphasize that media at this point is not CNN or Fox News or ABC. For a large amount of people, it's X and Twitter, literally, and that's where we come across a lot of things. And my goodness, even after the Fuentes Tucker discussion, you can sort of see even in that world, like the talking points coming out, and they're so obviously scripted.
Yep.
So I want to make that clear too to people when we talk about now, almost if we say mainstream, at this point, no one's talking about CNN anymore.
Exactly. Yeah, that's a very good point and a very important point, because also now we also assume to some degree that if you're catching it online, it's some sort of alternative, independent journalism. That era has also changed, and now we have a lot of paid actors there as well. So there is no, that's all media. It kind of fits into that. And to go back to Father Turbo, Cyprian, Andrew Royal Path, Jay Dyer, because they're Orthodox. So I look to them for a lot of things that I'm looking into, because they've called so many things that have happened and occurred. So if they're saying something right now that sounds a little bit, you don't agree with, you're kind of like questioning, just keep in mind, they were calling things out before most people were like hip to it. So there's a good chance that they're doing that again. So I just wanted to like bring that up. So the reason why I brought up the war on this, it's a war of discernment, is because it's our duty as human beings and as Orthodox Christians in particular to be able to exercise this. And if we're not able to ourselves, look to others who have better discernment, and then kind of trust them. So that's why I wanted to mention that real quick. So I'll jump into like a little bit of a timeline to kind of lay like some groundwork, because we want to make this conversation about solutions first and foremost, and less about the subject matter that we're talking about. So I'm going to actually focus on things that we lived through. You mentioned that we're the same age. But before I get to that point, I'm just going to outline something. Like there's a lot of examples of in the past, going back many, many years, where the agenda, what the goals were outlined for everyone from, Wells to there's so many examples, right? H.G. Wells I was referring to there. But one good example that kind of helps kickstart this is Technocracy Inc., which started in the 1930s. Elon Musk's grandfather was a big player in that. It started here in Canada. It was also where a lot of the ideas and concepts of credit scores, social credit scores come from. They were going to do it more tied into energy, kind of like the carbon tax idea comes from there. But their map of how they wanted to implement this technocratic state, it wasn't a communist state. It wasn't a capitalist state. It was a technocratic state run and ruled by technocrats. That was their idea. People that are experts. So if you recall, during the 2020 era, experts was thrown around often. It's often referred to in the UN and the World Economic Forum. They're always talking about trust the experts, trust the science. A lot of this comes from that school of thought, Technocracy Inc. So that starts off in the 30s. And their map of how they wanted to lay everything out included Greenland, Canada, the US, Mexico, going all the way down to the Panama Canal. Sounds familiar? Sounds a little familiar, right? So a lot of the things that you're hearing in politics now are not new ideas. They're old ideas brought back. So a lot of people probably have heard Technocracy Inc. I just wanted to start with that to kind of lay the groundwork here. So let's flash forward to like the 80s, okay? So all of a sudden you start seeing like people wanting, the controlling elite wanting to start to centralize things, right? So of course, to do that, you'd have to have like central banks. Everyone has to be, connected and put together in little groups, right? So of course we have the introduction of the EU. That was the very first time that a bunch of countries came together to be one real country. So stop looking at the Europe as a bunch of countries. It functions as one country, as the EU. Then then in North America, they introduced the NAFTA Free Trade Agreement. So we lived through that, and we remember as kids that was brought up in school. Oh, the EU, they're going to have the euro, one currency. It's going to make it easier, one passport. Then they started to introduce that concept here in North America. It didn't go so well, but it kind of did a lot of damage. A lot of the production left Canada and the US, went down to Mexico, weakening both economies. We remember all of that stuff, right? So then we're going to flash forward real quick into the 90s. The 90s, we started hearing a lot about Agenda 21, especially for us that were kind of in the libertarian circles and the conspiratorial circles, this and that. And that was an agenda backed by the UN, and now it's been rebranded as Agenda 2030. and we'll get to that real quick. Basically, the goal of Agenda 21 is to take the political and economic systems, weaken them, and make a collectivist system. G. Edward Griffin did a great job of explaining Agenda 21 back in the day when we were kids. And I do, bring him up often because he was one of those people that I should have mentioned earlier who had a good discernment, was calling things out. So why is that relevant? Well, they also wanted to introduce the Amero, if you remember, back in the 90s, which was the North American version of the euro, right? So that would mean that Canada, the US, Mexico would all have the same currency, very much like the European Union. Could you imagine if we had that now? What kind of a mess we would be in, right? So also keep in mind, the number one country they want to weaken is the US because of a lot of the ways the US is structured, from the Constitution to the Bill of Rights to the whole concept of having states. That's a big focal point here.
As you guys know, the team at Podsworth Media has worked with me for a long time producing this show. A big part of that over the past couple of years has been them using their Podsworth app to make the audio sound clean, level, professional, even when the raw recordings were super sketchy, which mine can be sometimes. In fact, this one that you're listening to right now is super sketchy. I took this microphone sock off here just to show you how crappy it will sound. Except when they put it through the Podsworth app, it sounds beautiful. I've got this annoying white noise maker going on. It's driving me crazy. If you want to hear how bad this recording is before they put it through the Podsworth app, you can hear the full before and after demo for yourself at the link in the description. The app recently got a huge update and it's better than ever. So good, in fact, that it can take almost any atrocious voice recordings and make it sound great. They remove background noise. It cuts down on plosives. It fixes clipping when your gain is too high. It reduces reverb, removes clicks, pops, improves tone, and the level of the dialogue is even and consistent. So if I move around like this, which I sometimes do when I get excited, it'll fix all of that. It's super simple. Go to podsworth.com, click Get Started. Drag and drop your audio files or open them right from your smartphone browser. Customize your settings if you want, but honestly, the default works great for most podcast recordings. Here's the cool part. Enter code BUCK50, BUCK50 for 50% off of your first order. No account needed, just email and payment. Then you get the download link in your inbox with your cleaned up files. It's perfect for podcasts, YouTube videos, sermons, homilies, audiobooks, anything like that you want to sound legitimate and professional. Remember, use code BUCK50 for half off your first order. And you're supporting this show. Thank you, guys.
I feel like those points might be, I am by no means my Constitution guy, but there are guardrails against some of these things. And I think a lot of, since my early interest in politics with sort of the Southern agrarian and Southern secessionist movements, because of individual states. I used to often say we're not the United States of America, we're the United States. I think there are some guardrails against a lot of this stuff, which is to show there is none of that in Europe. There's none of that in Australia, Canada. So it seems easier to sort of, for the elites, if you will, to tweak around what they want to do because other places don't have these guardrails.
That's a very important point, and that's a key component as to why it's a threat to have the U.S. the way it once was. It's still in a decent position, okay, better than others, like Canada is a good example. If you don't like how things were done in California in 2020, you got your stuff packed up and went to Texas, right? I know Texans didn't particularly like that, and I totally understand. But you have that choice. You do not have that choice in Canada and many other countries. You just don't. So that's a very important point. So which is why they wanted to weaken all of that using NAFTA free trade agreement, and all the stuff and the Amero, and it would have totally taken down the country. So now we're going to flash forward to and I know I'm jumping around a lot, but again, we're just trying to lay the land here and look for solutions. We have the economic crisis in 2008, right? It starts in 2006, 7, and 8, and then it becomes explodes and it becomes a huge problem, right? That economic problem also sparked a movement, like an actual grassroots movement, Occupy Wall Street, which if you were to look up now And also, if you were to look up at certain documents, it was like, oh, it's backed by the left. It was a left movement. But you and I both recall, and we've talked about this many times, it was the first time I recall, as at that time, I guess I would have called myself somewhat of a libertarian. I would have had other identity factors, but definitely I would have been there. I remember standing, and I think we were talking about this privately a couple times, and next to you was a communist, and then next to you was a socialist, and next to you was like an extreme capitalist. So everyone, the communist, the socialist, the capitalist, the atheist, the religious person, everyone stood together and was like, we have a big problem here economically. And they all stared at the bank. They all said the bank is the problem.
In the original Tea Party movement, sort of the Ron Paul revolution, organic version of it, not the one that got taken over by Ted Cruz types.
Yeah.
Same thing. So in those days with the Ron Paul revolution, it was like Tea Party people I was sort of involved in. It's like Ron Paul, Alex Jones, and then there were some guys, and it's slipping my mind at the time, that Ron Paul was even close with in Congress that were like legitimate, real leftists, not sort of the corporate leftists.
Yep.
And goodness, Dennis, it's slipping my mind. My people are yelling at it right now, I'm sure. And these guys, it was like I had like liberal friends coming to Ron Paul rallies because he was at least pointing out some of the issues.
Yes.
And it feels like once these groups started getting together, it's like the elites are like, racism, that sort of thing.
That's exactly it, right? And that's exactly what happened with that movement with Ron Paul, which led into the Occupy Wall Street stuff, which is why if you look it up, it's funny that they leave Ron Paul out of it. Like if you do a wiki search, I did it earlier today. I was like, what do they say about Occupy? And they completely left out everything you said, but that had a lot to do with it. Bitcoin had a lot to do with it because the early example of Bitcoin, not the one that we have today, there was a possibility for some sort of future. So people were like, what's the solution? Bitcoin. They were giving these as examples. So the elite obviously freaked out because it was, like I said, the first time, and like you said, the first time that they saw everyone kind of congregate and go, hey, we all have the same enemy. Like we're fighting. For us to continue fighting, we have to deal with this other enemy, right? And it's the banks. So what do you see come up next? You see the Trump derangement syndrome. Everyone starts losing their mind. It was like the beginning of all the culture wars, cancel culture, wokeness starts to creep up. It starts to percolate to a point where it was like a fevered pitch. And that's when you remember Jordan Peterson fighting back all that stuff a little bit later. So you start to see like they kind of orchestrated this beautiful way of divide and conquer. All of a sudden, those leftists and rightists that were standing next to each other were now fighting over like culture wars, right? Because things got soft again. The economy got fixed, let's say on pause, and everyone got comfortable and they forgot who the enemy was and they started to fight again amongst each other. So that brings me to, I got to flip the page. That brings me to, sorry guys, I'm really flying through timelines here. There's a lot of stuff that happens all in between this. We start getting to 2019, which was an interesting year. And it gets overshadowed often by 2020 for obvious reasons. But Brexit started to really percolate heavy. Remember, 2019, everyone was talking about Brexit. This is another version of a solution that was kind of grassroots. It was like the Brits kind of saying, you know what, we're done with this EU collectivism thing. This doesn't make any sense for us. Let's leave, right? Mm-hmm. And of course, what side doesn't like that? Obviously, the same side that wants to control and keep that all together, right? So you have that start to happen. And like, obviously, I'm going to be jumping here on some of the events. We have Terry Mullis dying. I know it's a weird thing to bring up. Terry Mullis is the guy who invented the PCR test. He dies in August. I believe it was August, of a heart attack, which was already weird. And that made an impression on me at the time in 2019, because I remember him during the whole HIV weird stuff that was going on in the like 80s and 90s, and all the conspiracy guys know what I'm talking about. Fauci was connected to all that. So I found it weird that he passed, like it was a weird passing. And it didn't really make the news. Also, at the same time, Greta Thunberg gives that world famous speech. Now, you might be wondering, why am I bringing that up? Well, I was working at Lush. And for those that don't know, Lush is the most woke company that could ever exist. It was woke before woke was a term. It was social justice before social justice had a term. So I was in a big meeting and they put this on this big screen, this girl. I had no idea who she was. And they presented her like a demigod on the screen. And the first thing that came to mind was her speech was identical to the speech given by David Suzuki's daughter to the UN in the 90s. David Suzuki, for non-Canadians, I don't know if he's famous outside of Canada. He was like a big ecologist, he's very left-leaning, very much about collectivism and the ecology. He disguises it about like, it's all about, global warming. It's all about this and that. And I think there's even I looked later, I think there was even a video where they put both of the speeches side by side, and they're identical speeches, the same sort of messaging. And I found that very, very strange. So again, that helps to create this divide thing, the arguing, the fighting. And now it creates like a radical version of ecology. Like people were taking days off school, if you remember, leaving work for the day to go and protest all that stuff. Remember all that stuff?
Oh, yeah.
Okay, so also at that same time, that summer on Netflix, I found it interesting that there was this bizarre, huge push for a documentary on viruses and vaccines and all that stuff from a Bill Gates thing. It was like a Bill Gates documentary that was on Netflix. The reason why I bring these up is because during 2019, I was hearing from the guys I mentioned earlier that they were talking about, they're reminding everyone of the Lockstep document from 2009, right?
Yes.
On page 18, which outlines what was coming in 2020. So a lot of people were starting to put some things together in the circle and like the darkness of the internet. Like they weren't in the forefront. So then all of a sudden you had the Event 201. Very few people talked about it when it was happening. You know what I'm talking about, that simulation thing, Event 201. Yeah. So then all of a sudden it started to kind of click for some people, and they started saying, wait a minute, is something going to happen in 2020? Is that when, is it coming? Is this whole thing coming? So then all of a sudden, 2020 starts. The very first thing that kickstarts 2020 in January is Brexit. Brexit happens. That's a big deal because they voted their way out of that. They voted their way out of the EU. They broke ties and took their country.
And then they made them do it twice.
Exactly.
They made them do it twice. It was just fascinating.
Almost like, hey, I think you guys got it wrong the first time.
Yeah. Did you not read it correctly? There's no way you disagree with us on this. I mean, Morrissey, you must have been incorrect when you wanted Brexit.
Oh, God bless Morrissey. Let's hope he finds the Orthodox Church.
Yeah.
It could be possible. He did the sign of the cross on stage and got in trouble here in Canada. So you have Brexit happening. That's another solution point. So I like to make those points of the solution points, because what you're seeing here is people actually doing something, coming together to make an actual push, right? So we have Occupy Wall Street. We have Brexit. Those are two big ones right here. Then you have all the whole COVID stuff. We remember all that. But we get the Vax ID. All of the names I mentioned earlier that I said about discernment, we're telling you about that way before 2020, that they were going to be putting this into place. And then if you can go back as far as the 80s and find people talking about this, right? Certain names I don't want to mention because, we don't have to agree with everything that everyone says, but the people that called things out, at least, keep in mind that they were calling things out. So you have this Vax ID come into play, and it was taking a stronghold in a lot of countries. I think a lot of people forgot about that. Like in the US, there were certain pockets where it was in full effect, but most of Canada was in full effect. A lot of parts in Europe were in full effect. There was a lot of places where you couldn't enter buildings without that pass, and everybody was warning you. This is tied into digital currency, like cryptocurrency. This is tied into all your IDs, your passports, all of that stuff. Going back to the beginning when I was talking about Technocracy Inc., that was a big component of it, was having a way of knowing how much energy people were using. That's your carbon credit scores, and all of that stuff. They moved it into the modern era and made it social credit scores. So now how you conduct yourself online, those are all going to be put in play. But the first step was the Vax ID. And a lot of places took it. New York took it. LA took it. Most of Canada took it. And what stopped that? What stopped that was the truckers. This is a big one.
Yes.
So the one and only time that Canada actually did something like of a pushback, and I think it was weird that it was Canada, because nobody on the world stage expected Canada of all places, those Canadians, to do this. They stopped the nation with their convoys. And then what was the result? Other countries took this on. You had it spread all through Europe. You had the Netherlands, you had Germany, you had it happen in the UK, in Australia, you had it happen in the US. That was very, very, very reminiscent to me of what we were talking about with Occupy Wall Street.
Yes.
The only difference was that the left wasn't with us this time. This time it was just a small group of people in Canada that were pushing back, but they kickstarted something that went worldwide. That stopped the IDs. Nothing else stopped the vax IDs. Like, I'm sorry, I've heard some people actually even claim that the convoy was a psyop. I'm like, how could it possibly be? You don't understand a psyop because the result is not what they wanted. It put the brakes on it. It showed them that they still have balls. It showed them that they can still push back. They could still do something. Humanity, that is, right? So you have these truckers. That's another big solution that we need to come back to. Stop this ID thing, and they put a pause on it. And they kind of rebrand the Great Reset because everyone started reading Klaus Schwab's book.
Yes.
Everyone started talking about the World Economic Forum, tying it into like other examples like we talked about with Technocracy Inc. and all that stuff. So then they realized, okay, they had to like pull things back a bit and kind of like take a different approach. So now it takes us to the modern day of the political theater we have. Father Turbo, our spiritual father, had an amazing quote that he had made in his one of his Q&As on his school platform, where he said, how did he put it? He said, the left are the barbarians at the gate. The right is the Trojan horse. And that's exactly what it was. It's exactly what it is. Because if you look at what they're bringing in currently with the right, like, I'm not trying to take shots at anyone here, but like, let's be honest here. If we look at what's on the table, it literally fits with Technocracy Inc., implementing the digital ID, which is the first thing that we should be concerned about. Like, some of the things that are happening out there are extremely important and like they're concerning, but nothing is more concerning than the digital ID. Because if that gets put into place, better people than I have given you really great warnings and done a lot of great work on this. It's over for humanity on multiple levels. I haven't gone to the Orthodox solutions yet. So for all the Orthodox Christians, we're going to get there. But this is a real big deal here. This is another time where we need to stand, no matter who you are, side by side on it. What does this look like, though? It was considered a conspiracy theory. Then it was considered not a conspiracy theory. Then it was considered a conspiracy theory again, right after the vax passes, because they already tried, they went away. It's the conspiracy theory. But let's look at it now. Where did it get implemented? The kickstart of 2020 was in the UK. And the UK is a very important player on the world stage, okay? For many reasons, the City of London and BIS, the Bank of International Settlements, and other reasons, right? But it started with Brexit. It started again in the UK again. They're the first ones that implemented the surveillance. What was it now? 12,000 people have been arrested for things that they posted online. That's ridiculous. That's ridiculous. And you look at the UK, they're implementing the surveillance. Canada is about to pass UBI, Universal Basic Income, which would make it, what that's all about, right? Yeah. And they're also implementing the surveillance aspect of it. If they pass these 3 bills here in Canada, we're in big trouble. Australia is trying out their CBDC system in Victoria. So again, these are all Commonwealth countries that are all sovereign to the king. People forget that they're still connected, right? And of course, we have New Zealand as well, but let's keep with those 3 to keep it simple. So they've taken the way that they want to implement and use this digital ID and spread it to different countries as test countries and kind of see how they're going to behave and how they're going to act. And they're going to focus on one thing in each different country before they kind of put it together. Then in the US, you have all the stuff you guys all know about. You have Palantir, you have the Genius Act, all this stuff. You have stable coins. And they rebranded the whole concept of CBDCs, and you heard certain individuals say, we're not going to use CBDCs. Well, your stablecoin system seems a little bit worse in a lot of ways.
Okay.
But the US is a thorn in their side.
Right.
Because they're states. Like you said, it's states. So you have to almost look at the states, like the United States, as a country made up of many countries. And you have guns. You still have pride. You still have like unity to some degree. When I visited Texas a couple of times over the last year, I saw it. Very big difference than it is here. That's a big problem for them. They need to quench and crush that. They're going to use very different tactics here. But just to sum things up on what the digital ID encompasses how you use your money. It's programmable money. And they did a test run of this in 2020 in Wuhan. And you can see the results of how they went about doing that. So even you and I having this conversation would give me far less credit score, and I'd have less of an ability to feed my family next month if I was on this plan. So you have your cash connected to it. You have your medical ID connected to it. You have your passport connected to it. You have your online access connected to it. So some of the beginnings are some things I agree with, but I'm also weary of where it goes. Like, for example, in Texas, they've banned pornography, corn. You can't access corn sites without ID. I don't disagree with that. I think it's a good idea. But when it becomes a scannable thing, that's the beginning of testing out the actual access to the internet. So a way you could see it in play is when you look at how they talk about Web 3.0. You can't access certain sites if you're using Web 3, which is not the web we use right now, is Web 2.0. Web 3.0 is a good example would be the NFTs and certain crypto things in blockchain. You have to I put up an NFT in 2021 of one of my songs. I couldn't access my song, my account, or the website without scanning my phone to the barcode, the QR code to access it. It had to access it through my ID.
Wait, what is Web 3.0, by the way?
So Web 3.0, just to keep it simple, is taking the internet as of today and then putting blockchain on top of that. Blockchain is like what crypto is built on. For those that don't know, Bitcoin and all those things are built on blockchain. Just to keep it simple without kind of like going into too much detail, you take the internet you use today, but you put it on blockchain. Yeah, it's interconnected with blockchain. That's a simplified answer for that.
Okay.
Yep. Okay. So there's many other components to this ID which are a problem. Now the thing is, I mentioned the Trojan horse thing. Well, what you're seeing right now in the political theater, because we're going to move from this into solutions, is you see the after effects of what happened with the Trump derangement syndrome. You had the wokeness thing percolate. They wanted to fight back against the right, all the Trumpers, in his first term in office. And then all of a sudden you have this Biden thing and you have this explosion of ridiculousness, like on every level, where the average person, even if they're leftists, have a hard time defending some of these ridiculous things. And we know what they all are, from cutting off body parts to, asserting men are, all that stuff, right? They went so far to one extreme that it created a percolation of an extreme on the right as well, which you and I wouldn't fall into. But we would be very far, we'd be more, I'm more right-leaning, far more right-leaning than I am left, of course, and so are you. But I wouldn't put myself on the far right by any means. So now they're kind of doing the same thing. They're starting to try to push people on the right to act like the people, as extreme as the people we're doing on the left. It doesn't seem to be working, which is, I'm really happy to see. Like, there's cool, calm heads on the right. Like, I don't see a violence. I expected after the shooting, I thought something might happen. It didn't. Everyone behaved well, except they're not paying attention to the digital ID. They're caught up with all these other things, and they're important, but they're definitely not as important as this ID stuff, because people forget the technology is moving far quicker than legislation could possibly move.
Yes.
So you can't fix this on a legislative level at all. By the time you get there, it's already full blown. More than just AI. Our AI is already out of hand. Okay. So you start to put all of these things together. People need to stop and really think about what this means. And I was talking with Cyprian on an interview that I'm going to put out soon. I was mentioning, if you're being told this in the media, even if it's on X, it means it's already happened. They're just letting you know. They're just letting you know. So this stuff has already been in play. So I'll pause there because I said a lot.
We've got a new sponsor. It is Perfect Spiral Capital. This is the infinity banking concept. Break free from the system. Perfect Spiral Capital helps you build wealth on your terms, outside of the control of the corporate banking cartel and the state-manipulated markets. Invest like a dissident, a true dissident. Take ownership of your financial future with strategies designed for those who refuse to be cogs in the machine. No handouts, no bailouts, just real results. Opt out, build wealth. The state inflates your savings away while Wall Street rigs the game. You guys know this. Perfect Spiral Capital helps you stack real assets and create lasting independence. Go to perfectspiralcapital.com/counterflow and get a special offer for fans of this show. Again, that's perfectspiralcapital.com/counterflow. Well, I mean, yeah, we could go many directions over that. I think one thing I'd want to touch on is the instinct from people in our circles, including me, to get bogged down in certain quote unquote conspiracies and sort of miss the forest for the trees sort of thing. And you get focused on, I mean, I appreciate some of the stuff that Candace Owens does, but when you're putting out shows on if the person in France is actually a man or a woman, it's like, I think you're getting bogged down in sort of useless conspiracy sort of things. Do you see that as well?
Yeah, it kind of scares me, and I think it's on purpose. Like, I'm not necessarily.
That's what worries me.
I'm not necessarily saying she's bought and sold like other people I could mention as well, but you don't necessarily have to be. Sometimes you could just be nudged.
Correct.
If you start seeing like your clicks go up, your view count goes up, you start seeing more money come, and you're like, oh, this content makes more money than this other content. Right. That alone will make you do it.
I know. I've always thought when people do the whole like, oh, they're bought and paid for, or they're bad actor or paid for actors. It's like, you understand there's like, you have to also understand economics. Yeah. And so there's incentives people have without actually having some guy in a dark room go, hey, if I pay you this money, will you? It's like there's economic incentives. And so you can have structural things that would make someone look like a paid for actor without them being that. And so I think we get bogged down in these terms too of like, oh, he's bought and paid for, he's controlled op, this is a psyop. It's like, or there's an existence of a economic structure with incentives that makes that person go, ooh, over there, if I do this, that sort of thing.
Yes, and that's something very important to realize, because we're all human at the end of the day, right? And I've even seen it with some of the stuff I put out early on, and I got good hits, and I was like, do I want to continue with this path? Because that's not maybe where I want to go. But I've also heard from like Josh Sigurdsson from World Alternative Media, who's also another guy I should have put on that list with good discernment. There's been a lot of guys that I can mention that we know from the libertarian world where they won't know where a donation comes for like a whole Bitcoin. You know what I mean? And they're like, where did this come from? They don't think about it. So sometimes we don't know where that money comes from, but it does come from people trying to nudge you. So let's not forget,
for sure,
you don't have to be a paid actor, but there are people out there that have their eyes on you, and they know you can sway opinions and votes, and they will throw money at you, and they will do that. So like there's that to know. One thing about politics I did want to say, because I didn't want to make it sound like I'm against all of it. I think it's important to realize that there's like a lot of people out there that are trying to go through the traditional system, the political system, let's say, and try to work with it. I'm not saying that they should stop or whatever. We need everyone, all hands on deck.
Yes.
We need orthodox people doing those things. We need to vote those people into power. In the US, here voting doesn't work, but it's not even close to the same thing. So I also wanted to make a note that like you could see in the US, I would vote if I was an American, because you saw certain sheriffs and mayors make certain decisions during COVID that the rest of the state, so it does work on that level. So I'm not trying to be like the black pill, white pill. They really mess up the meaning of those two things. So it's important to have those people in politics. It's important to have orthodox people in there and vote them in there. They could be at the very least the canary in the coal mine and let you know what's going on. They might be able to like talk to someone that might be seeing some things and sway them. So I just wanted to make that point.
Yes, absolutely. I won't give away too many. I just spoke to an Orthodox friend at my parish this morning, and they have connections to the Trump administration, and they're pushing for something that I had no idea about that was sort of mind-blowing. And then even outside of that, there's an Orthodox conservative man primarying Governor Abbott here in Texas. So that sort of thing I think is nice to be behind and whatnot.
Definitely. I definitely I'm happy that I didn't forget to bring that up, because I think that's a good point. We can't just like look at everything black and white and super simple. The only thing that's black and white is like God versus the devil. At the end of the day, that's all that's black and white. Everything else, there's like things like Ben Dixon's a great example. I've spoken to him privately a couple times. I've heard him on your show. I've heard him speak. I love the man. I think he's doing amazing work. We need people like that in politics. We need people like that kind of out there doing what they're doing. Like, it's very important to have those people. So I just wanted to say that for anyone that's like, oh, he's saying, we're screwed. I'm not saying quite the opposite.
There's an instinct for people to go, well, if nothing's going to work, then you're just black-pilled and we're done.
Exactly.
And we are going to get to solutions as well, because there's physical stuff that's happening in the real. Everything's spiritual, of course, but there's manifestations and through politics, through physical realms, through psychological realms, and I do know good Orthodox men and women, sort of, let's say, in the trenches, fighting some of this stuff too. And we need, it's like in libertarian Austrian economics, we would call it a division of labor. You do need people to use their talents in various manners. So like Mano was saying, we're not like, well, politics is going to screw everyone over, we're done. Right? It's not that sort of thing.
Yeah. That's how we've survived as humans, and that's how we've survived as Orthodox Christians. And that's where we can look for solutions. We could look at the history of some of the things I pointed out. Why is it that Occupy Wall Street scared them? Why is it that the truckers scared them? And that's because they saw humanity come together. And then, as Orthodox Christians, a good example for us is very clear in history. We had the most successful empire of all time, the Eastern Roman Empire, 1,000-year run. Byzantine Empire. I'll just refer to Eastern Roman Empire for simplicity. And then what do we see? We see the fall of Constantinople, and we see the Ottoman Turks take over. And how does Orthodoxy survive in such a very difficult environment? My background is Greek. I grew up with a lot of Serbs. I grew up with a lot of Russians, Romanians, and this and that. And then a lot of them that were under the Ottoman yoke, obviously not the Russians, but the Greeks, the Serbs, anyone, like the majority of the Christian world was under Orthodox Ottoman rule. And the way that they survived was by building communities and also having access, connection to monasteries in isolated areas that could not be overtaken. Or try to find village areas where they had churches. Why? Because the monks' monasteries, they provided food. They were able to grow their own food, have their own governance, of course, their own libraries, to be able to teach the youth, to keep the language so that we could just continue to be able to read the Bible. Like, that's an important component to this, right? Because we would have lost all of these things. So, we need to look at those kinds of examples and see how we can apply them today. Also look at the governance and how it worked. And it was Symphonia, church and state working together. A proper monarchy in that sense, where the ultimate monarch is Christ and Christ alone, but we can have worldly monarchs who have their eye and their heart towards Christ and work with the church together, Symphonia, to make a perfect balance of ethics, morality, way to live, and create that unity, right? And to simplify it, to how can we kind of apply these things? Do you want me to pause there, or do you want me to go to how to apply some of these things?
Let's apply it.
So, let's be realistic about how we would do this. And I've been accused of saying, someone has accused me of saying, oh, he's talking about catacomb orthodoxy. I'm not talking about that at all. I'm saying out in the open. Yes. Out in the open, we need to be, now is not a time to run away. Now is a good time to be a good example to other people, to non-Christians, to other denominations, to be like, look at what they're doing. Look at what kind of people they are. That's the best way to create mission work, is to be a real Christian and have that soft heart to be able to bring people in. But we need to also create something before we're able to do something like that. So what I'm saying is, we look at these examples of how these communities existed in a lot of these countries that were under occupation. And a lot of what they did was they resorted to building strong homes. You know what I mean? With God first. We talked about that. Then with that, you have father, eyes and heart towards Christ. The mother trusts the father because of that. She's the neck, he's the head. They move together. Then she teaches the children, and that creates a strong unity. Okay, that sounds simple, fine. And we know that works. But then you have a group of other families, and all of a sudden you have a neighborhood where you choose your neighbors. You have neighbors that have these same ethics and morals. Now that group of people creates a community. And I'm not talking about communism. I'm still talking about Like, you know what I mean? It's because there's not communal living, but it means like choose your neighbor, choose your community. That community becomes a city, a town, all that kind of stuff. All of a sudden, these are shared ideals, shared values, where everyone kind of grows together. Kind of like G. Edward Griffith used to give a good example of a forest. He's like a strong tree made up of many other strong trees makes a strong forest. So that's what we need to start creating those things. How do we do that? Well, we need to do the opposite of what they've done to us. We need to take their social engineering, their culture creation, and re-engineer it, invert that, create our own culture, bringing back, like what I mean by our own culture, all the things that, you see online now with Death to the World, examples like that, where we need to create our own art. We need to take, look at their demonic, entertainment, whether it's books, movies, music, and we need to create our own books, movies, music, so that we can save the world through art. Why? Because we're made in the likeness and image of God. If we're made in the likeness and image of God, and we keep that in mind, like an iconographer does while they're creating an icon, they are praying over it. They're doing their best to reflect the other side. If we're doing that and taking that same thinking and how we're creating things in the art that we make, then when it's consumed, it'll be an inversion of the art that's out there now. Everything from the P. Diddy stuff to whatever, right? We're done with that stuff. We're done with that stuff.
And as opposed to, not to pick on the Protestants, but as opposed to trying to fit into the structure of modern pop culture and go, well, we're just like the good guy, and you end up making garbage. It's always, I reference that Hank Hill and King of the Hill when Bobby started getting into Christian rock, and he was like, "You're not making Christianity any better. You're making rock and roll worse." And it's like that sort of thing, because they're trying to fit into the structure given to them by the demonic influence, essentially. And so if you look further and further and further back, I do think we are having sort of a new wellspring of sorts of like architects and artists and stuff that are looking towards the true and the beautiful, instead of trying to fit in with a pop culture and go, but we're Christian.
That's exactly why we started the record label and some of the other things we're doing. It's not about like worship music. It's not about Jesus rocks.
Yeah,
there's none of that stuff. It's kind of like approaching it like I'm a musician or an artist, and I happen to be Eastern Orthodox. Some of it can reflect that, but it's done with that exact same intent that you're referring to. It's not trying to like become, that other
the Christian Taylor Swift, right?
Exactly.
Right.
Who wants like? That sounds so awful when you put it that way. So like through the arts, through music, through buildings, like you're saying, that's on my list as well. We need to start creating beauty. We need to start bringing beauty back. We need to look at beautiful things, whether it's the homes we live in, the churches we go to, the office building that you go to. Why does it have to look like this stupid box and be like disgusting? Paintings, books, and authors. We have a lot of great people in our community that are putting out some great stuff. Authors, musicians, artists, all that stuff. So that's a very important thing. Keeping in mind the likeness and image of God, but then also applying this stuff to governance, like you're saying, with politicians, even finances. So yes, we have certain stable coins and certain cryptocurrencies that may not be there to help us as much as we think that they may help us. But we also have other solutions like Cyprian from the Royal Path. His background is in a lot of this stuff. He's helped develop and been behind some really interesting tech. I'm looking at some of it myself to implement in what we're doing. So there are ways of taking the technology to some degree and applying it to use it for our betterment, to actually be a decentralized system, like eCash, for example, something that we're looking at implementing with what we're trying to build. And building these communities, when someone's trying to build a monastery or get a church funded, I find it ridiculous. I'm just going to say this. I wasn't expecting to say this. I find it ridiculous when I got to Texas and I heard that a lot of priests have 2-3 jobs outside of being a priest. That kind of upsets me. I'm just going to say that. Like, I think it's the first time I'm going to get upset on this podcast. Like, what is that? I've never heard that in my life. You should have one job, and it's not a job; it's a service, and it's
Yeah.
you're a priest. Why do they have one? Never mind having a second. I mean, some of them have second jobs. That's ridiculous. We need to fix these kinds of things.
Yes. I was having a discussion this morning with a longtime Orthodox friend of mine who's got ties within the political world in Texas. And he was pointing out how the Catholic Church has credit unions.
Yeah.
And I didn't know that. And he's like,
Yeah.
could you imagine if we had Orthodox credit unions? Wouldn't you want to put your money into there, and the interest or whatever, however they make their money goes to the Orthodox Church? Could you imagine that? And I'm like, I hadn't thought about that. I don't know how the usury part of it would work, but so yeah, certainly it's those sort of things.
Yes, and that's why if we take some of these things that are in front of us and invert them, we can make those things happen. Like, for example, that thing I was talking about with Cyprian and his use of cryptocurrency stuff. We can have something like that where it doesn't have to even have usury. If you understand the way his the tech that he's talking about works, is actually quite brilliant. We don't even have to have that. So these are like solutions that are applicable today that we can take action to create something. So like, it's not necessarily to bunker, just to be clear, I'm not talking about bunkering down and you know, that's not what I'm talking about. I'm talking about living out in the open. Like even the cryptocurrency I'm referring to, you could take it on your phone, you can have it in eCash, you can go down to Starbucks in Dallas and you can go do that and it'll transfer from one to the other and you can buy your coffee. I'm not telling you to don't buy coffee. I'm not telling you to run to I'm saying we should build this stuff, put it in front of people, be careful about how we do it, of course, too, and really build something. There's this, and the other point to why I broke down all the stuff on the world stage is don't get bogged down with the politics, the little nitty gritty stuff.
Right.
Look at the bigger picture. The reason why I brought up Technocracy Inc. in the beginning is, doesn't that sound like something you've heard politically in the last couple of months? And isn't that what's being implemented when you look at the digital ID and you look at Agenda 21 and Agenda 2030 and you look at all this stuff? Isn't that exactly what's happening right now? So really, maybe pay a little less attention to, like you said, you know, whether Macron's thing is a man or a woman, or like the incident that occurred a little while back ago with the massacre, the shooting, you know what I'm talking about? That whole thing. Yeah, pay attention to it, but like don't get bogged down in all the little conspiracy things and little rabbit holes and all that stuff. Look at what's really in front of you. Look at the threat, because the barbarian is at the gates and the Trojan horse is here. We need to do what we did during Occupy, or the truckers, but Orthodox with this church.
I think Father Turbo had a great point recently. He, Andrew, and Cyprian on a Roll of Path episode talking about what clowns do. And there was sort of an analogy to not necessarily actual clowns anymore, but the clowns that catch your attention while they're changing the set in the background. Oddly enough, after hearing that, I met a guy that was a clown. And so I sort of brought that up to him and he's like, well, yeah, that's pretty much what we do. Mm-hmm. And so I think some of us, and I know I'm guilty of it, especially on X, can get sort of distracted by the clowns. It's sort of the look over here. And then there's things developing in the background. And yeah, it's interesting who really publicly executed Charlie Kirk. And no, we haven't got a lot of real information on that. But so it's easy for me to go, let me check this out. Was it this person? Was it this group of people? Was it that country? Meanwhile, we're developing digital ID. So I just want to warn people and myself publicly that we can get caught up and distracted by the clowns.
I live in a country that you do know some about, because I realized how little I knew about what was going on in Canada until I got back here.
Yeah, speaking of clowns, goodness.
The nation is, something's not right here on many levels. There's a lot of beautiful people here, a lot of great people. But some of the legislation that's being passed right now is terrifying, and it's going to be passed soon. And, you know, it's ridiculous. I don't want to get to the details of it. The point isn't to slam Canada or the UK, or anything. It's to tell people, the average person, like you're saying, like Father Turbo, Cyprian, and Andrew were saying about the clowns, look for the clown and then look where they don't want you to look. Mm-hmm. What's really going to affect your life? if you're out there collecting conspiracy theories, and I've gone down that road for many years, and this is the first time in my life I don't want anything to do with it. Even this conversation, I had anxiety even having it as we talked privately, because I kind of give up. I don't want to talk about this stuff. There's other people that are talking about it that are better than I am at doing it, and it doesn't affect my life in a good way. Gather the information, get a good sense of who the enemies are, get a good sense of what they're trying to do to you, and then see how you can solve them. That's the real white pill. The black pill is getting caught up in all of the little loops and dupes and clown shows where you miss the opportunity to actually do something. So with the political thing, I said some good things, I said some bad things, but just keep in mind, this train is moving so quick, legislation cannot keep up. So just keep that in mind. You're not voting your way out of this. You're not going to legislate your way out of this. It's moving way quicker than that could even possibly happen. And Elon Musk's grandfather was a part of this from the beginning. Just keep that in mind. And the map that they described in the 30s that they wanted was described in November and December and January. That's not a coinkydink.
Yeah. We can take it to, let's see. I mean, the white pill obviously is Christ. Yes. I was going to say for us, but it really is that for everyone. I do think I have seen people in my life that I know personally, and I'm not just speaking of one person for anyone listening to this, several people that have sort of too much has been revealed. And they're like, what is the Orthodox thing that you're talking about? And it's mind blowing. Like, I never would have thought you would say this. Mm-hmm. And I don't say that to them, of course. I think that. And I sort of lay it out there. And certain people, I think you need to breadcrumb. Certain people you can sort of go all in with. And that takes discernment, I suppose, too. But there's so many traps laid along the way. And someone recently told me, and this was a liberal person, I'm interested in the Orthodox Church. I've been researching it. It's interesting. I'm willing to sort of concede and look into that, but I'm not changing the politics that I'm in. And I just said, it's okay. They said, I'll go. I'm willing to make that change, but not the other ones. And I just said, well, that's the only change that really counts. Sort of knowing like, well, once you make this change, the other things sort of fall in line. Hopefully that's the goal, of course. But I don't want to like preach, hey, come to the Orthodox Church, but then you can't like the alphabet soup people, then you can't do this, then you can't. It's like, just come to the Orthodox Church. Things will sort of fall in line as they should, I think. And that's the hope.
Yeah. I like how you put that. That is very true. I mean, I was thinking you were going to ask me in the beginning to introduce myself. I'm happy you didn't, because I was like, I'm having a hard time with that because my identity is changing, and it feels like
that's because you're in Canada. You're doing that. Are you transing?
I could be. Am I wearing a skirt? I could very well be. You don't know.
Yes.
But yeah, it's a real thing. Like, those things that you hold dear before you come into the church that you don't even realize are like not really important, they fall away real quick. And then you just kind of like, it's like the death of the old man that process starts, I'm like nowhere near, but it starts to fade away. It's like things I thought were really important. Like a couple of years ago, if you had asked me to have the conversations that you've asked me to have privately, which I didn't want to go on to do, I would have been like, yeah, oh, totally, man. I would have broken all. But now I'm just like, I don't want to talk about that. So right. There's one thing I just wanted to add about a solution, if that's okay.
Absolutely.
One thing that's been helping me, because the task at hand that with what we're trying to pull off with all the things we're doing with the label and this Texas project that we also have going on, which is a big thing. A lot of it's really overwhelming, and it's kind of nuts. And a lot of people are behind us and supporting us behind the scenes. So that kind of even brings more anxiety to me, as like more pressure. So one of the things I was doing is like, what does someone do if they want to apply some of these solutions, or try to like think of the world that we just described and kind of like relax, calm down, because it's going to cause anxiety. It's going to cause stress, like, facing all the stuff that we're talking about. It sounds easier said than done. the only way I could think of is like, and I'm not just trying to say it, just words, but actually through praxis, is like, put your faith in Christ for real. Just like you do when you see someone who may have a cold behind you sneezing, like I do, and they're in communion, they're in line for communion, and you don't think twice. You just put that spoon in your mouth because you know why. It's the real medicine. It's not going to affect you. So that trust is something that's really hard to kind of wrap your mind around sometimes for some people. Like it's hard. Yeah. Like there's moments where you lose things. So, and especially when you're looking at climbing Mount Everest, like with this project or the stuff that we talked about, because this could be very overwhelming for someone. It's easier said than done, Mano. The simplest way I've been trying to think of it is just knowing that if I'm on the right path, I just try to be on the right path and I move forward and I put one foot in front of the other and I know that there's going to be ground there because I have faith that for however it's going to happen, it's not in my hands, it's in God's hands, and God will figure a way to get it done for me. Just like I hear a lot of miracles that have occurred and people just like, I don't know, one day I got this check or whatever. It'll happen in God's time. And then my only thing that I have to do is exercise my free will. And my free will can be exercised only by repenting and thanking for the things I get. Like actually legitimately give thanks for where they came from. They didn't come from me. It came from God. And what was it? There was a third one I just forgot. Anyways, I can't believe I blanked out on that. There's like repentance, giving thanks, and praying. Well, certainly, but that's all that's asked of you. It seems to me, if I could say it as a layperson, and I checked with Father Turbo, it seems to me when I looked at this formula this way, works, faith, and then exercising my free will, all that's asked for you is to give thanks and pray. Repent, give thanks, and pray. That's all that's asked of you. Everything else kind of gets taken care of. I've seen that work for me at times where like I'm a big jerk, but when I would apply those things, they would kind of work. So I think that's a major solution, is actually obviously participating in the church and all that stuff. But a major solution for me on a personal level is keeping those three things in mind. It brings down my anxiety for sure.
Yeah, it's the same. And again, I still get tied up sometimes in sort of online discourse. And because so many things now, like we talked about, the information's out there. My friend Adam Patrick in the Age of Information podcast, it's all out there. And so again, we're not in this age of like, I grew up watching Alex Jones on InfoWars. It's not necessarily an information war because they were holding things from us. And this was prior to a lot of internet stuff, to be honest, and to age myself. But it's all out there now.
Yep.
And it's like, when I tease young people about, well, I never heard of that band, or I've never heard of this obscure reggae sort of music that you like. It's like, well, it's all out there.
Yep.
That's not really an excuse. It's, and you get pulled over for speeding and you say, I didn't know the speed limit. It's like, well, the sign, you went right by it. And so there's clowns distracting you. And I try to there's so much to sift through. And if you can pull back a little bit and not get tangled down in the mundane BS of the moment, I think that's helpful.
It really is. When in doubt, zoom out. What's the goal? It's good versus evil. How are they going to get you? Exactly by distracting you. How does he get you? The devil. He can't create. All he could do is deceive you, trick you, and manipulate you. So a lot of these things leave room and space for logisme to pop in.
What is that? Will you explain that real quick?
Logisme?
Yeah, because there's people who are going to go, what?
Oh, yeah. I would, to simplify it, it would be like little whispers from the demons putting thoughts and ideas in your head to distract you and move you around. And sometimes when you open a little bit of a floodgate, you could feel them come in. So like a good example is a drug of choice, whatever that may be, right? You start with one and then I'll have a second one and this and that. And all of a sudden you start doing some dumb things.
Yeah,
that's not an example of logisme. It's just an opening of how you let that in. So when you're online and you're doing your jiggy-jaggings on X or whatever, that's a good opportunity for you to get triggered, upset, and this and that.
Yes. Yeah. I can't tell you how many times I did it, probably 8 times today. I'm firing back at someone who posted something that I see as stupid. And I'm like, stop.
Yeah.
X out of this, no pun intended.
Yep.
Close the app without hitting send. Now, people that follow me on X are going, well, I saw you write a lot. Well, imagine the things I didn't write.
Yeah.
Because I'm getting bogged down in a mundane, retarded discussion. This person is probably putting this out there. I don't want to associate or assign why they're doing it, but I just go, get out of this. This is silly. I don't need to respond to this right now. And I think some of us in my circles and yours, we have to also be careful on these people. I had people literally in real life this past couple of weeks tell a mutual friend, well, you know that guy's a racist Christian nationalist. And I think there's a temptation sometimes for people in our circles to almost prove them correct by being a caricature of yourself when it's stuff you don't mean or whatever. And the last thing you need to do is give, let's say, to use a term from a few years ago, a blue-pilled NPC reason to go, see, that.
That's a very good point. We were talking about that beforehand, and I think that's a very good point that we need to keep in mind. Like we've been provoked so much with all the weird left stuff that was shoved down our throats. It's very easy to be like, you know what? It's my turn to swing back, and just be careful with that. I'm not saying that it's good to make some points. It's good to go out
Absolutely.
there. But
and there's people that will always take your points that are legitimate and twist them into, he's a racist Christian nationalist.
Exactly.
That's not what I mean, is to not make legitimate points and be a truth teller.
Yep.
But to just give someone ammo that's unnecessary and it's something you don't actually mean is sort of, you're sort of helping the enemy.
Exactly. And don't feed into that, because that also brings us back to Logos me again. That's exactly what they want, right? The great deceiver, he wants to divide, hence the word diavolo, to divide. You've heard that 100 times, but it's true. Wrap your mind around the word. It means to literally divide. So anything that divides is of the devil. Anything that brings people together is of God. And obviously with keeping certain things in mind when I say bring things together. I'm not talking about ecumenism here. But,
right.
Let's make that very clear here. But at the end of the day, we are representatives of our faith. It doesn't mean, be super soft, but it's more of like know when to be soft and know when to be hard. You know what I mean? It's like know when to turn the other cheek and know when to overturn the tables. Like as Christ would, right? No to say, Satan, get behind me. He wasn't just, arbitrarily turning the other cheek. Christ gave examples where you have to push back, but just know when to do that, and know that if you go too far, you open yourself up for temptation to go further. And you also, as you said, prove the point of the other side, and it creates a bad problem for a lot of people, including yourself. Right. So the other thing is, like, if you're going to collect all these conspiracy theories and all this stuff, that's fine. If you're using it to create a map of reality where you could see where to go, what direction to take, how to apply this to your life. But if you're just collecting that information to just regurgitate it out to people, that time is kind of over and done with, because there's real problems on the table. You could have done that a couple of years ago. That's fine. But now it's done. We need to act.
Yes. Yeah. Goodness, this happened so quick. We've already gone an hour and 7.
Not my fault this time.
No, I know I'm interjecting a lot too. Do you have any closing thoughts on this? And then I have a question or two at the end just for fun.
My only closing thoughts on this is, because I've said a lot there, is basically like, if you are curious about Orthodox Christianity, go and check it out, because you could see a lot of people have changed. If you watched Buck's show for long enough, and I'm obviously talking to Buck's audience, you must have seen a change, even from the last year and a half. I know I have, because I used to follow his show back before I was even Orthodox. And there's an immense change. That change didn't happen by mistake. It didn't happen gradually. It happened very quickly. And there's many of these examples with a lot of people in our circles that could follow the same trajectory. And we're talking about hard people. We're talking about people that were hardcore back in the day, not just for music, but just in their living. And they've changed. So I think that represents something that you should look and explore to. And for those people that are Orthodox Christian, it's the example of the guy with the snot coming out of his face and all that stuff, and he's in front of you in the line for communion. What are you going to stop and not take it? So if you believe it, you're going to take it. So if you believe in the church in Christ, and I'm not talking to you as someone that's really good at being a Christian, but I definitely believe in certain things and I have faith in it and I put one step in front of the other. So have faith that no matter how dark things seem to be, and they are. Like, let's be honest. We're pretty close to something here. But just keep in mind that snot guy in front of you taking communion, you go right up after him because you believe. And if you believe and you apply that to the world that we're in right now, we'll get through this if we come together as a community.
Yeah. And I would say I've been guilty of this too, shutting yourself off from the quote unquote opposite political side.
Mm-hmm.
I've learned recently not always the best and most fruitful option, because again, it seems miraculous, but I've seen people sort of all of a sudden, because of something that happens to me or someone they're close with that doesn't align with them politically, from people that do align with them politically, go, whoa, hold on. Yeah. This person's not what you're saying. And then so there's sort of little small moments of revelation that can kind of fall under the big moments of revelation that we've been seeing.
Sorry, now you said that, it triggered something else. So this is your fault.
Okay.
Repentance. Like a example for me is when the whole COVID thing was going on, from like the beginning of it, from like January, February of 2020, I was talking about it. I was actually talking about it in 2019. And even the wife lady and a few other people that know me that are big fans of my opinions were like, no, he was saying it. I didn't treat people the best. Like, I wasn't aggressive and angry and a jerk about it, but I was so desperate to kind of like get people to like, see what was really going on. I could have picked better ways of approaching it. And coming back to Canada, one thing I realized is there's a lot of people I love dearly from friends and family that I've missed dearly leaving, like having been gone for 4 years, that I was angry with when I left. And I realized I had just as much to do with this as they did, because they bought into the narrative, but I didn't act properly. I didn't act like a Christian. I wasn't a Christian at the time, but that's no excuse. When I think back now, I could have done things a little bit better, and I'm trying to repent on that because I love these people no matter what decisions they have made.
Yeah. Well said, sir. Just for a few fun things off the top of my head, Danzig or Michael Graves' Misfits?
Danzig, I have to go with the classic.
Okay, fair enough. 80s two-tone ska or first wave ska from Jamaica?
First wave ska, Jamaica, absolutely.
Okay. Stevie or Jimmy? For those listening, Stevie Ray Vaughan or his brother, who I'm friends with. But this is no pressure on Mano here.
That's a
Jimmy
tough
Vaughan
one.
or Stevie Ray?
I have to go with Stevie Ray.
Okay.
For a couple of reasons, but Jimmy has this thing that's hard to explain why he's so good. Like, you know what I mean? But I have to go with Stevie for sure. I have to go with Stevie for sure.
Okay. I think if I were to interject my own thoughts, I'm biased, of course, because Jimmy is a friend. But Stevie, if you're talking pure skill, that's obvious. If you're talking maybe a certain like old school feel to something, or a coolness, if you will, I would go with Jimmy. I'm walking the line. I get that, but that's my thoughts on that. One more or two more fun ones. Favorite hardcore band?
That's a tricky one. I'm gonna go with Bad Brains.
Oh, okay.
I'm gonna go with Bad Brains.
Artist, rapper, singer, band, anything that you love dearly and you feel like sometimes you shouldn't be listening to it because you're Orthodox?
Oh.
Don't say Two Live Crew.
Just one. There's a few because like I play them on air. Like the Misfits. Sometimes I feel like I shouldn't be listening to the Misfits. Rappers, I would say Ari the Rugged Man. I would say RA. Even politically sometimes, like he does stuff. Yeah, those are two. I mean, I'm sure when we get off, I'm gonna like lose it and be like, I didn't name this band and this band.
I got one more. And again, these are, I did not, for those listening, I didn't tell in that Mano that we're going to do this. Most biggest disappointment from a band that you respected that you lost the respect for over 2020, 2021. I mean, that's a long list.
There's a long one right there. Some people might hate me for this one, but I loved Bruce Springsteen's songwriting style but I started losing respect for him a little bit before 2020, but definitely 2020, I can't listen to him anymore. Like, I can't. Like, say what you will about Bruce, but there's a couple of albums and his songwriting style was pretty awesome. I can't listen to him anymore. I just can't.
I would say Dropkick Murphys, and I knew some of them, and I will applaud Al Barr for being the best member who withdrew from the Dropkick Murphys over all of that stuff. Now I can't hear him anymore.
Did he? I didn't know that.
Yeah, over that sort of stuff.
Oh, Gogo Bordello. I still listen to I still listen to them. It wasn't because of the COVIDs, but their Ukraine stance.
Okay.
That because he wrote a song called something about what's the guy's name? Zelensky's Iron Balls or something stupid like that. And on the track was also Les Claypool, which kind of broke my heart. And what's this guy from Police, the drummer for Police, who I don't care about him anyways. I forgot his name now. Whatever. But yeah, Gogo Bordello sometimes.
I've never asked you this, and I just want to see if we align on this opinion. Best female singer of our generation.
Amy Winehouse.
Oh, thank you.
Yeah,
Agreed.
yeah, okay,
Absolutely.
All right.
Father Turbo and Andrew and Vin brought that up in the one I heard from them, and it was they were talking about Michael Jackson and Prince.
Yeah.
And then they mentioned Amy Winehouse, and then a female singer that I don't. Adele. See, I didn't even know it.
Yeah.
And they said Adele is Michael Jackson, Amy Winehouse is Prince, and I was like, yes.
Yeah, and I was because I was screaming it because they were like thinking of this. I was like, Amy Winehouse, like. Well, and then
I was doing the same thing.
It was like
I was doing the same thing. I remember exactly which area of Austin I was driving, and when I heard that, and I was like, you better say Amy Winehouse. Yeah, totally. What's your favorite hardcore band? I would have to say Agnostic Front, probably.
Oh, yeah. That's a good one. That's a good one. Yeah, that's a good one.
There's moments where I can get nostalgic and say Youth of Today or Gorilla Biscuits, but I think the one that's kept on going certainly has the biggest catalog that I'm even aware of any hardcore band, I think, outside of, maybe Terror's got a lot, but Terror's up there. Agnostic Front, probably my all-time favorite. I've met Roger many times, and I've almost thought about having him on, but for those listening, that's the singer of Agnostic Front. I don't know that would flow. Wait, would I be going? Wait a second, did I just catch myself? Maybe that would be going counter to the flow. Goodness.
That's awesome.
When are you coming to Texas, sir?
We're trying to figure that out. So, because we launched the label and the school thing, and part of it is helping me get to some places. So, because I'm going to North Carolina, South Carolina, and I'm going to the Florida conference, which you might be going to too.
I am going to.
So Texas is on the schedule, like probably after Florida. Once I can get some cash going, I need to come.
Okay. Yeah, Mano and myself will be in Florida. Jay Dyer's putting on a conference. I believe our friend Justin Marler will be there. Father Deacon Ananias will be there. David Patrick Hare. Everyone that's going there has been on this show. Everyone that I just named, at least. there's hundreds of people going. But I'm excited to...
Paul Robbins, they're going to be there.
Excellent.
Yeah. Neil and Kate. I'll finally get to meet Neil and Kate. That'll be awesome.
All right. Well, it is sold out. I just saw Jay post today. Tickets are sold out. And so if you bought one, we'll see you there. Mano Elia, my buddy, thanks for being here, sir.
Thank you for having me, brother. I love it. I love you and I love the show.
Right back at you. I love you and I love your show. Mine's okay. But yeah, good to talk to you, man.
You too, man. Take it easy.
All right, guys. Thank you, Mano, for being with us. I hope y'all got something out of that conversation. Like I said in the show there, Mano and myself will be at that conference in Florida that Jay Dyer's part of. I hope to see some of you guys down there. Again, it's sold out, so it's too late if you have not purchased tickets, but maybe some of you have, and we'll see you there. As for this show, subscribe to the Rumble page, the YouTube page, hit like, comment, all of these things to help us in the algorithms. Follow me on X at BuckRebel, BuckRebel. We've got the Telegram group going strong. And I should tell you this, I love the support you guys give me with the t-shirt purchases. And it's my fault that recently I've had to refund some people because you're ordering sizes that I'm now out of. I need to make a new ad because I've got only large and extra large left. That's it. You guys purchased all the other ones. The big boys, the big women purchased all the double XLs. The small guys, small women purchased all the smalls and mediums. I've got some large and some extra large left. You're more than willing to get rid of all of those from my house. And until next week, you guys have a good one. See ya. Like the sound of the Counterflow podcast? Our audio production is provided by Podsworth Media. Check them out at podsworth.com.
This has been a Dissident Media production.